Hello, everybody. My name is Greg. Oh man, I'm just now looking out at all y'all. It's amazing to see so many friendly faces, and thank you all for coming here. So let me share a little bit about my story. I had the privilege of joining Twilio's developer evangelism team in 2014. Rob Spector, who's sitting right here, hired me. I got to serve at Twilio for 9 years, and a couple days after my 9-year anniversary, I got laid off. That was about 2 years ago. Incredible, and Twilio was incredibly generous, and it was an incredible time, and I had this opportunity to try to, instead of like just hopping back in the next thing, take some time and figure out, okay, I just did 9 years of DevRel. What do I want the next chapter to look like? And I decided at the beginning of this year that I was going to start a YouTube channel and really focus on a personal YouTube channel. And I set a goal of trying to grow that YouTube channel from 0 to 10,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. As of this morning, I'm right around 8,500 subscribers, so I'm on pace probably to hit the goal in the next few weeks. And what I wanted to share is just some of the lessons learned there. I am so incredibly not an expert on YouTube. I am an expert on starting from scratch on YouTube and trying to get to 8,500 subscribers at least, because that's been my primary focus. So this talk is for anyone who's looking to get started, either with your personal brand or starting up a YouTube channel. And in fact, I am so confident in this, I recently just changed my my title on LinkedIn to Vibe Coding YouTuber. I don't know if y'all saw the post by Thomas Tasic. It's like, all my AI skeptic friends are nuts. And there's this line in there where he's talking about, he says, a common objection is, I don't understand the code. And he's like, are you a Vibe Coding YouTuber? I'm like, actually, I think that might actually be what I am today. It's been hard to figure out titles recently. So I want to break this up into two parts. First is why YouTube? Like, what is the opportunity here to do DevRel over YouTube? And then second, I want to talk about how you do YouTube, how do you get started on this, and just some lessons and tips I've learned along the way. So first, why YouTube? Let me talk a little bit about the DevRel playbook that we were doing at Twilio when I started, let's say 11 years ago. And I think I'll hit this pretty fast because I think this theme is going to be echoed a lot over these next couple days. I would broadly describe the playbook that we ran on the evangelism team when I joined as being two primary tactics. The first was events. We traveled to a lot of events. We sponsored a lot of events. I think one, just setting aside corporate budgets and zero interest rates and COVID and travel and all that stuff, just personally, I just don't want to travel that much anymore. I have 2 girls, they're young, I don't have a ton of time with them, like they actually like spending time with me. I want to like soak that up while I have it. I don't mind getting on a plane occasionally, but I just don't want to do it like I used to. The second tactic, when we weren't on the road, we would write a lot of technical content. And the idea here is that we wanted to write blog posts so that when a developer ran into a problem, they have an IDE open and they ran into a problem, they would Google that problem and they would land on the Twilio blog and we would help them solve that problem. That was one big chunk of the portfolio of content that we would write. I think it's safe to say that today, when developers run into problems, they tend to solve that problem in the IDE via AI, and they're not going and searching, they're not going to end up on your blog. And so over the last couple of years, I've been thinking like, okay, so we had these 2 big pillars. Like a lot of my career, my DevRel career was spent doing events and writing technical content. If I'm not going to do that, what do I do? Right? And so I spent a lot of time building stuff for the last couple of years. It was really great to be leaving right at the same time all the AI stuff came up, and I just started building stuff with AI, and it was the most fun I'd had coding in a long time. And I wasn't sure if I was going to like start something, and what I found, I think this is the nature of both me and my ADD and then also just AI, is I'd work on something for a couple weeks, and then I'd be like, really excited about it, and then I'd move on to the next thing, and then the next thing, and I felt like after a couple years of just spending time with AI, I didn't have a lot to show for it. I thought maybe I'd start like a SaaS or something. And then I really like DevRel. I like doing this. I was like, well, what if I made videos? Like, what if videos was the output? What if I spent a couple weeks working on a thing, and I made a video about it, and the video was the product? And then I could go on to the next thing and feel good because I had this thing to show for it. And so I started doing consulting for some various AI firms, and our friend Matt Mackay built this great tool called plushcap.com, and he tracks the stats of a bunch of dev tool companies, about 500 dev tool companies, and he has these leaderboards of all their content. And I was really interested in his leaderboard for YouTube, because of the 500 companies he tracks, only 230 have more than 1,000 subscribers. And of the 500 he tracks, only 80 have 10,000 or more subscribers. And this was interesting to me because I was getting paid by some AI companies to create content for their YouTube channel. But a lot of them, the companies I was working with, had fewer than 10,000 subscribers. And I thought, well, if I could grow my own channel to the place where I had more than 10,000 subscribers, then it would make more sense for them to publish content on my channel than on their own. And then now I'm building an asset as opposed to just like trading cash for videos and whatnot. And so that's where I came up with this goal at the beginning of the year of I'm just gonna focus on YouTube. The asset is going to be the YouTube channel. The product is gonna be the YouTube channel, and we'll see if we can grow this. So let's talk a little bit about why you specifically, as someone who's in DevRel, might want to consider doing YouTube, and why I think we have a bit of an unfair advantage compared to other YouTubers, right? And because I think if you all have younger kids, these days, YouTuber is the most popular job. It's what all the kids, it's like how I wanted to be a baseball player when I was a kid, right? Like, it is what the kids want to be when they grow up. But being a YouTuber is so hard. If you were to look at, say, Peter McKinnon is one of my favorite YouTubers. He has multiple camera angles, all these cinematic shots. I spent a lot of time like studying other niches like woodworking. These folks are doing, they got whole builds. They've got all these different amazing like film setups and whatnot. This is probably the best developer YouTuber out there. This is Jeff from Fireship. He has, we'll talk about him more in a little bit, but he has about 5 million subscribers. This is his setup. This is what's required, like right in front of him, to be the best developer YouTuber. You don't need a whole bunch of fancy camera equipment. You basically need a computer and a screen. Jeff actually doesn't even put his face on it. For folks who do, you need a single camera. You need some way to record your screen, and you're good. Like, that's how you can make content for this audience. Also, this audience happens to be like the audience that probably has the most disposable income, right? Like it is also, in order to make content for this audience, you need to be a developer, right? You need to know how to write code. And so I've always enjoyed DevRel because I don't feel like I'm a great developer. I don't feel like I'm like a world-class public speaker, but I'm pretty good at both, and that gets you in this realm. To be successful in YouTube and in DevRel YouTube, you need to be pretty good at code, pretty good at speaking, and you need to be like competent at video production. And that combination is just not something that a lot of people have. And so I think YouTube, like, you can take just a few months, learn enough video production, and be very successful in this realm, and all of a sudden you're not facing a lot of competition. Like, it's not like, other YouTubers, if you want to be really good at video games, you just need to learn how to play video games, right? So you all have the prerequisite skills here, plus a little bit of video editing, and you can be a successful YouTuber and do this job that so many folks want to do. The last part I think is really interesting about DevRel YouTube, sort of the perennial question of this conference: how do you measure the impact? YouTube has metrics. Like, they have so many metrics. You can tell exactly who's watching this. You can tell where they are. You can tell how long they engage with your content. You can tell when they dropped off your video. You can tell all sorts of, whatever data you want. This is probably the best tactic in terms of measurement for DevRel. All right, so let's talk about, if you want to get started on YouTube, how do you get started? First, you gotta study YouTube. And I think the mistake that I made was not appreciating that YouTube is its own thing. So for instance, I've been giving talks at technical conferences for a long time. And I feel good at storytelling and speaking to developer audiences. I gave this talk at the Business Software a couple years ago, and I remember getting off stage and feeling like I crushed it, right? Like, I just felt like the room was with me and everything. When the video came out, I went and watched the video online. I was like, man, this is terrible video content. Like, it was slow to get started. It just, like, I was trying to, like, do things with the room that didn't come across online. And there are specific tactics that work on YouTube videos that you need to learn. And so at the beginning of this year, I started off and I was like, I'm just going to study this game. And so there's a couple books that I would recommend. You could take screenshots of it or take pictures of this. YouTube Secrets was great. There's another one called YouTube Formula. There is, of course, this is a whole field of folks who are trying to sell you on how to do this professionally. So there is hype. You got to, like, sort through that stuff. But I think reading a couple books on, like, how professional YouTubers do this stuff will get you very, very far. It'll also help you understand more about the opportunity and the growth of YouTube, and especially the growth amongst the younger demographics. I have a playlist called Learn YouTube. There are lots of folks who are teaching how to learn YouTube. I really like Jay Klaus is one of the guys that I study, and he brings a lot of YouTubers on his channel. I just keep a playlist, and when I'm working out or when I'm doing the dishes or whatnot, I'm just always listening to this. You can really learn some really great techniques, and what you want to do as a developer is go learn from the professional YouTubers and then bring that into the work that you're doing. If there's one person I'd recommend just going, or even just if you just want to watch one video just to get started, I really like this interview between Jay Klaus and Patty Galloway. Patty Galloway is a consultant who has worked with MrBeast. Really great just strategy and helping you figure out how do you get started and what are the main things you want to think about. So let me show you one of the first big lessons I had from YouTube, and that is around packaging. When I started doing work with clients, I would often have this mistake. So we come up with an idea for a video and say, okay, yeah, we're going to ship the video. I'll have it done on Friday. I do find estimating to be very, very difficult here because videos about developer stuff has all of the estimation problems of software development, plus all of the estimation problems of writing, plus all of the estimation problems of video editing. And so what always happens to me is yeah, we'll have it done Friday. And then I get to Friday, and I'm like, okay, all right, I have the video done. Maybe I dropped it in Slack, they previewed it. And so then I go to YouTube, and I upload the video, and YouTube's like, what's the title? And I'm like, oh yeah, I need a title, don't I? Well, it's a really good video, So I was like, I don't know, pedantic AI tutorial, whatever. And it's like, oh, you need a thumbnail. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I need one of those too. I'll go to Canva, and I guess I'll throw some words on a screen and use one of their templates. And one of the first things that I really learned from Patty Galloway was the importance of packaging. And he says that when most folks get started on YouTube, they think I'm just going to make a really great video, and if I make it, people will watch. And he says, actually, YouTube is a click and watch platform. You can make the best video in the world, but if nobody clicks on it, no one's going to see it. And so the title and the thumbnail are actually, he says most folks do it at the end. He encourages his clients to spend 30% of their time coming up with concepts and titles and thumbnails. And to not do any video recording, to not do any writing until you have a title and a thumbnail that you are confident in, right? And so how do you come up with ideas for titles and thumbnails that are you confident in? And again, I would say go study YouTube. So for instance, if you were to look at MrBeast, MrBeast has a common theme. You'll see these all across different channels, right? X versus Y. Right, so you'll see it $1 versus $100 million car, $1 versus $100 million house, $1 versus $250 million private island. And so for me, I started thinking okay, how do I adapt these themes that I know work other places into our realm? The first video I ever did where I had this idea and I had a really clear picture of the concept before I did any work on the video was this one. It's Cursor versus Claude Code. And this came from just studying, and then I had been playing with both these tools, and this concept came to me before I sat down to record anything at all. And this video, I remember telling my wife, I was like, I just had the idea for the video. This is going to be my first video that gets 10,000 views, right? And that video to date is at 75,000 views. And so that is something I would not have come up for the concept of this video had it not been for going outside of the developer world, looking to see what's working on the rest of YouTube, and then trying to bring those concepts in. Next, when we talk about time. Time is weird when it comes to YouTube, and I've been thinking about this a ton. So I'm going to share this video here. I'll say I landed on this concept of X versus Y, right? And so then I was like, I'll make another video like that. And so OpenAI came out with a codex, and I was going to do the same thing. And there's all these kind of YouTube best practices that you want to open these curiosity loops where you pose a question, but then you don't reveal the answer to the question at the end, so you maintain retention. I don't really love it. And on this video, I did not like OpenAI's Codex CLI. And so it felt disingenuous to make a video where I was dragging out the suspension. So I'll see if I have
tried both Claude Code and OpenAI's Codex out head-to-head on a couple different projects. I'll kind of go against YouTube best practices here and just spoil it. Codex fell pretty short, and it was disappointing.
So I basically just spoil it in the beginning, and I was like, oh, this probably won't do well. It was really interesting to me to see the comments because the comments, I got so many comments from folks saying, hey, thank you for respecting my time. And as a developer, I'm like, yeah, actually, that's what I want. Like, I want people to respect my time. So it's like there are these YouTube best practices, but then when do you violate those best practices for the sake of your audience? And I started just thinking like, okay, what would it look like if I just took respecting my viewers' time to the extreme? In fact, what would it look like if I were to invest so much of my time in order to give them more of their time back? So Anthropic released this paper, Claude Code Best Practices for Agentic Coding. And it was it had so many great tips for using Claude Code. And I had this idea of like, okay, what would a YouTube native version of this piece of content look like? And so I made this video, and the video is called, I think it's 47 Pro Tips in 9 minutes. And so I'll play you just a short clip just so you can get a feel of what the video feels like. These pro tips pretty quickly. First tip, Claude Code is a CLI. So all the things that you're used to doing with other bash-based CLIs, you can probably do with Claude Code. For instance, you can pass in command line arguments, which will be run on startup. You can use -p to run it in headless mode. You can chain it with other command line tools. You can pipe data into it. You can run multiple instances of it at once. So this thing goes on for about 9 minutes. And my thought there is I'm going to spend 1 to 2 sentences on each tip, and I'm just going to deliver as much value as possible. This video probably was 50 hours of work, maybe 60 hours of work, between learning everything, trying to recreate all the tips myself, taking screenshots of them, editing. I probably filmed for well over an hour to get 9 minutes of content, and then came back over and put all of the bits on there. And so in my mind, I'm like, man, I am taking 60 hours of my time, and I'm trying to compress that and give it as a gift to a developer of like, here's 60 hours and 9 minutes, right? But the really cool thing that I'm just having a hard time wrapping my head around is 60 hours is a lot. I took a lot of that time. But now the internet has engaged with that piece of content for over 6,000 hours. And that's been an interesting way for me to think about this work, is how do you take your time, invest a lot of your time to compress that down for a single developer, but you do that then in a way where so many developers engage with your content that, I'm getting, let's just say like 100x, delivering 100x of value to the turn. Like the world has gotten 100x more time out of this piece of content than I invested into it. And that feels really cool. Like it feels cool to create that much value for folks. So I've been thinking a lot just about time. Like, how do I use this channel to respect time? How do I like both know the YouTube techniques, but also just be really, really aware of how precious a developer's time is, and respect it, and use this channel to respect that and give them that. Let me talk a little bit about process, because I do think the most complex part of YouTube, or the most challenging part of YouTube, is the time. It is so time intensive. When you look at the process of doing a video, first you gotta build and learn, then you gotta write a script, or an outline at least. You gotta record, you gotta edit, you gotta ship. Those first 2 steps there are what you had to do to ship a blog post in the past, right? And so I felt like at Twilio, when I'd write a blog post, I was looking at 20 or 30 hours just to do the blog post. And it's like, okay, congratulations, now you have a script. Now the recording starts, now the editing starts, right? And so the biggest challenge for me has been, how do I ship more content? And I think the way you do that is you have to start looking at how do you compress, or how do you delegate some of these steps. So for instance, that can look like, how is it possible to delegate the learning? So the Anthropic post was an example of this. I didn't have to come up with that content from scratch. I could take content that already existed, and I could create the YouTube native version of that, all right? Another example of that is I shipped my first interview video last week. And so there's this package called CC Usage. And I reached out to him and said, hey, do you want to hop on a call and we can talk about this thing that you built, right? And so there I was talking to the expert. And I understand now why so many YouTubers basically just have podcasts where they bring guests on the show. They're delegating the learning process to the expert that they bring on. You can also, I am not personally doing this yet, but talking to folks who run programs, DevRel programs, you can hire editors. I don't feel like I'm at the place yet where I understand my own taste and where I know exactly what I want to be able to delegate that. But editing is a place, like this is what one of my recent edits looks like. This is probably 12, 13 hours of editing into this interview video. I need to figure out a way, either through getting sharper with the tools or by delegating this out, to figure out how I can shorten this up. But I also like this because in an age of AI slop, I feel like I put a lot into the videos to demonstrate that it's handcrafted. And I feel like folks are increasingly going to appreciate the things that they can tell a human created. Another technique on the editing, I think in YouTube, in the same way that the title and thumbnail is really important up front, the beginning of your video needs to validate that they're getting what they thought they were getting when they clicked on the title and thumbnail. And once you have a viewer and they're watching and they're invested in that first minute, you can do less editing and less polish on the back half once they've engaged. But it's really important to invest as much editing in that first minute as possible and make that as sharp and as crisp as possible. And you can see in this video that I just recently published that in the back half, or really the back 80, 90% of the video, there was a lot less editing. All right, a little bit about psychology. I have found psychology to be one of the most difficult parts of this journey. I am working alone. I very much miss working with a team. It is very easy to fall prey to procrastination and perfectionism. In fact, I tried starting a YouTube channel when I first left Twilio, and I just didn't ship consistently. I couldn't figure out the style. I couldn't figure out how to get myself to do it. My dad's a pastor, and my dad would always say, my sermon is never finished. It's just eventually Sunday morning comes. I will say, I stood up on the stage a few hours ago, and I looked out, and I knew I was going to be facing you all, and that was great motivation to finish this talk. You don't get that same sort of push when you're staring at this setup, right? The internet doesn't care if you ship today, or if you ship tomorrow, or ship ever. There is so much more content for them to consume. And so much of this challenge is figuring out how do you get yourself to ship without the pressures that you feel of giving a talk or whatnot. I was inspired by a magician who has a YouTube channel with 7 million followers named Chris Ramsey, and I read an article about him, and it basically just said when he was making this transition, he just put himself on a publishing schedule. And so my publishing schedule is, my goal is to ship 1 video a week. Candidly, I don't get there. Typically, I fall more like every 10 days, once every 2 weeks or so. Sometimes I do. But having that schedule helps a lot. Like for instance, this video I shipped last night, Make Claude Code Meow with Hooks. I'm not like thrilled with that video. Like I kind of wanted to spend like another 10 hours editing that, but I knew I was going to be here for a couple days, and if I didn't get it out last night, I wasn't going to get it. And so if I hadn't made that commitment to ship, I would have let that go. And honestly, if I would have let that go another week, I probably never would have shipped it. And so that's what has been most impactful for me in this journey, is just to say, I'm going to do once a week. If I miss it, that's okay. I do not miss 2 weeks in a row. Like I just cannot let that happen. But you got to figure out what cadence can you ship on. Another on the psychology, the comments can be pretty rough. This is actually the worst one I could find because I just delete the bad ones. Like as soon as it comes out, I'm like, this is my space. I'm not dealing with this. I let this go. I do think the bad comments, and this was actually kind. I'm not even saying this is a bad comment. This was helpful because I did have the typo, and I appreciate the criticism. But I would just say, like, you got to be on guard with the comments, and I'm just fine deleting them. I don't think I always, whenever someone leaves a negative comment, go look on their channel. And it's funny, I almost never get bad comments from anyone who has shipped a video. Take that for what it is. And then finally, it just can be lonely. And I'm really thankful to Matt and Ricky and Rob and Andrew Baker. And I have a number of group chats of folks who I send the videos to, I brainstorm ideas with, I talk about the stuff I'm working on. And I think it's just really, really hard. I think the loneliness and working in isolation is the hardest part about doing this. I know a lot of folks here are looking for jobs. Candidly, I don't know what the next phase of my career looks like. I don't know if I'll end up doing this independently or if I'll parlay this into doing this full time for a company. I will say, in the last couple of years, I applied for a job at Anthropic, and I heard nothing back. And I'm not saying they should have hired me. I'm saying I was qualified for the position, and I should have gotten a response. And I was like kind of offended by that, and I was just like curious about the job. I was like, man, why didn't they write me back? And I remember seeing this interview with Casey Neistat, who's a YouTuber, and he had this very famous ad that he did for Nike, and he got paid, a bunch of money for this stuff. And I saw this interview with him. He said, yeah, before we got paid to do that, we just made Nike ads for free. And I was like, man, if I want a job with Anthropic, like, it's kind of silly to like just be one of 1,000 resumes. Why don't I just do the thing that I'd want to do for them? And so a couple weeks later, I made this video. This video has now gotten like 115,000 views now. It might be the most viewed technical tutorial on Claude Code. And a few weeks after this, Anthropic reached out. And you know, I don't know what will happen here. Like this conversation's still ongoing, and I'm truly not really sure like what I want to do next. But it's a huge difference if you're job hunting from being one of 1,000 resumes to just being like, hey, look, I made a thing about your product and 100,000 people watched it. And if you want me to keep doing that, you could bring me on. And so I think this is an unfair advantage for any of you who are looking for your next DevRel opportunity. Finally, to wrap this up, are you too late? I was inspired by Jay Klaus. He has a channel with Notion tutorials, and he says in the tech world, every single week, new things are coming out, and there's new content to be made every single week. All of the videos that I've made on this channel this year are about technologies that did not exist 12 months ago, right? And so you are not too late. In fact, the opposite might be the bigger problem, is that I'm not sure if any of these videos that I've created will still be relevant in 12 months, all right? And so it does feel like a bit of a treadmill. And I do think there's a bit of, I understand how folks get burned out. But if you are looking at this and being like, oh man, there's already so many folks doing this, I would say you're not too late. I would also say I think there's so much opportunity here for you to find your style. Jeff from Fireship, as I mentioned, this is what one of his videos looks like.
Out of nowhere, Amazon released its own AI IDE named Kiro, yet another VS Code fork that will compete for the hearts and minds of programmers alongside editors like Cursor, Windsurf, Firebase Studio, and Copilot, just to name a few.
So Jeff does no face, highly edited, 4 5-minute videos, really funny, like sarcastic but not cynical, as Ricky put it earlier. Then you have like the Primogen and Theo, they do streaming, and then they cut their videos from there. Tina Huang makes really great technical tutorials, has almost 1 million followers. This guy, Nate B. Jones, like basically like shoots from his webcam, stream of consciousness, has 50,000 followers. You can do interviews, you can do technical tutorials, you can be funny, there's so much opportunity here, and there are so few developers who have video production skills that there is like unlimited opportunity for you as a developer to go learn what's working in the rest of YouTube, learn a little bit of video production skills, and then come do it your way here. And the best advice that I read here is just from Mr. Beast, and he said the way you're gonna get better at YouTube is just to ship 100 videos and to get better each time. Thank you all very much.